Hello everyone and welcome to my Dofus guide on how to build a strength-based IOP. Perhaps you've played the IOP before, perhaps you're completely new. No matter the reason, the goal of this video is to give you some answers hopefully to some of those questions rolling around in your mind about this class. Welcome to Benjamight Gaming, where it's my goal to bring you fun and fantastic Dofus PVM content. Alright, a couple important notes before we get started. First of all the suggestions in this video are exactly that. They're just my suggestions. It does not necessarily mean it's the only answer or the only way to go. Class spells change over time, so depending on when you're watching this, some things may be different. Also, all the recommendations I have for you in this guide are built around PVM gameplay, not PvP. Last of all, some of the things that I cover here will apply obviously to all IOP builds, but this guide is geared specifically for a strength build IOP. Okay, class guides are typically huge with lots of stuff to cover, and even though I've done my best to make this video as concise as possible, it's still pretty lengthy. So here's a quick table of contents if you want to jump around or skip around in the video to something specific. With all that out of the way, let's do this. Alright, the first thing I'd like to go over are the strength and the weaknesses of this class, so you can decide up front if this is something that you want to go after. The IOP class is considered a glass cannon. They're able to do incredible amount of damage, but at the risk of getting really close to the enemy. Some of the weaknesses of a strength-built IOP is they can deal their greatest amount of damage as a single element build. You can go hybrid in the different elements, but where they shine is the amount of damage that they can do on a single target, and you can maximize that by being just a single element. The downside of that is you put yourself at a weakness against anything that has high resistance to strength. Also, most of the spells are very short-ranged and they're not modifiable. And another thing I'd like to point out is they don't have any self-healing spells. However, they do have ways of prolonging or delaying the possibility of death. Now let's go over the strengths of the strength-based IOP. First, they're super easy to learn. In fact, if you look on here, it's only got a 1-star rating, so it's pretty easy to pick them up and figure out how to use them. As I mentioned before, they do incredible amount of damage on single targets. They can do some good AoE damage as well, but they really shine on how much they can blitz an enemy. They can also move around the map super easy because they've got a jump spell that they can cast at every single turn. So it's good for getting in and getting out of sticky situations. And another big strength of this class is because they are strength build, it means they can do some really good high damage in the neutral element. Okay, in this section, we're going to start going over the strength spells specifically. As you know, there's two sides to this. You have your primary spells, and then you have your alternate versions on the right-hand side. So that I can cover every one of them, we're going to start and just go down the left side, and then we'll switch over and we'll go down the right side. So the very first one that you get is Pressure. It's a short-ranged 3 AP spell, 24 to 28 earth damage, and it stacks erosion on the enemy. You'll be using this spell a lot, especially since it's the very first earth spell you get. A little bit of range here, decent damage, not too shabby. The next one that you're going to unlock is this Concentration, 2 AP and very short range. You got to be right next to the target. But for such a low AP cost, this is a really easy one to use multiple times, which you can cast 3 times on a single target. The next earth-based spell you're going to unlock is Sword of IOP, which is probably one of the biggest spells that you'll use regularly in PVM. It uses a plus shape pattern, and it has some pretty good range. In fact, it's the longest range spell that you have in your arsenal. It's an AoE attack. It's all about trying to get those enemies lined up, and then you just hit them with that. It does incredibly good damage, and for 4 AP, not too bad. Now, the next thing that you're going to get, and this is where the IOP really begins to shine. This is the powerhouse that makes them this, and that's what this Wrath is. Some people will say this is all you worry about with an IOP, but it is not. You're going to have to get used to using all your spells, but you do want to be thinking about how to use IOP's Wrath. At 7 AP, it's got an extremely high cost, and what happens is you use it once, and then that starts a charge turn on it. 3 turns later, you're going to get this big 110 base damage buff. Okay, so the first one did like 1,600 damage, and look at this, we're looking at more around 3,000 damage now. On a crit, it could be even more than that. Now, I'm not actually a pure build strength IOP, and this is again where you begin to see where you hinder yourself by sticking to just a single element or a hybrid. You got to kind of choose. See, I have strength and intelligence in my build. Pure strength build IOPs can do 5,000 and 6,000 damage. Then you stack a whole bunch of buffs and stuff on, and they can hit just ridiculous amounts of damage. But it's the same attack, it's just charged up, and it works wonderful. All right, we have 3 spells. 2 actually are alternate versions, and a third one is actually a fire spell that gets replaced with a strength. The first one is this accumulation. This one has a bit of a range. It's kind of like the concentration, but it has range to it, and you can buff it. So the way this works is it's 0 to 4, cast in a straight line, 22 to 26 damage. But if you cast this on yourself first, you get a damage buff. If I hover over this right now, you can see it's 376 to 429. If I cast it on myself first, it doesn't do any damage, it just strictly buffs me for the next 2 turns. Now, if I hover over, look at that, 638 to 689. It's a huge increase. So then you can cast this one from a distance. But you got to remember, try to buff yourself before you use this attack. The next one is an alternate version. This is your alternate to the Sword of IOP. This one's got some differences that could be super handy depending on how you like to play your IOP. As you can see, it's no longer in a straight line. You can move any of these areas right here. It's not range modifiable though, so what it is what it is. But as you hit a target, see that little AoE that begins to surround it. Any other enemies in that area are going to be hit by this damage as well. And the way this one works is it only costs 2 AP, and it's not a whole lot of damage. But the more times you cast it on the same turn, the higher the damage gets, and you can cast it up to 4 times. If I hit this guy, 206, you'll see that I just got a buff. Now, I can't cast it on him again. So we'll throw Mr. Skeleton out there, go to cast this on him, and now look, the damage on the pouch is up to 360 because it's the second time I'm being used. And you can do that up to 4 times. Every time it's gonna get a damage buff increase. So a really handy way if you don't wanna go toe-to-toe with your IOP, if you wanna have a little more of a range build, that could be a good alternative for you. Okay, this last spell that you're gonna get is the alternate to your IOP's Wrath. The nice thing about this is it's 3 AP instead of 7. It's still got a 1 range to it, so you gotta get right next to the enemy. But this one increases every turn you use it. So the very first time you use it, it's not gonna do a whole bunch of damage, but you cast it once, and you'll see Fit of Rage over here increases its base damage. On your next turn, you can cast it again. You can see the damage increased, and you can do it 1 more time so it can stack up twice. And as you can see now, we're up to over 1,000 damage, but you got to remember to use that every turn. It's not necessarily a great blitz attack like the Wrath is. The Wrath is you beef that bad boy up and get it as strong as you can, and then you just tear into that enemy. This one's better if you want to be able to attack multiple targets in a turn. You just got to remember to keep that maxed out. Get it up there, keep it maxed out, and then try to keep going from enemy to enemy with that spell. All right, now let's go over some spells that are not strength-based that are also going to be very useful for you as you play your IOP. The very first one that I've already pointed out to you once is this jump spell. It's 5 AP, so it costs a little bit. It won't be until you get higher AP on your character that you can really utilize this for some sweet combinations. And I'll show you some of those in the tips and tricks section of this video. It does not require line of sight, so you can use this to get both near or away from an enemy. So if you were already stuck next to them, they got you locked, they're going to do some good damage to you. Look, I could jump clear over that hole and get on the other side of the map. So it's a great get out of jail free card. One thing to note, if you use it to get close to an enemy, it does stack a damage increase on you for a turn. So you're going to take 115% damage instead of just 100 for that turn that you land next to an enemy. Another one, extremely helpful, is this Divine Sword. It's an agility-based spell. So if you're an agility IOP, you'll get even more use out of this. But as a strength build, it gives you a damage buff that you can stack on yourself twice and your allies. See, it makes a plus around you. So if you got your allies next to you and you use this, you can use it twice I got 20 damage and another 23 damage, so now I have a buff of 43 damage for the next 4 turns. And all my allies would have that as well. So a very handy spell to keep on you as you use your IOP. Another really good one. Also kind of a get out of jail free card for a lot of enemies. This Intimidation is a 2 AP spell, very short range. It's got a little bit of range, not much, but basically it's a way to push enemies back and away from you. If you have a lot of pushback damage stacked on your character, you can use this actually a couple times to smash something against the wall for some really good damage. But typically, you're going to use it just to get away from things that might have you locked. And it doesn't cost you very much. Also, it is a neutral-based spell, so out of all the elements, the strength-based IOP is the one that benefits the most from pushing them back and doing good damage. Blow is a spell that you're going to use in countless ways as you continue to learn your IOP. It has a lot of range to it, it does not require line of sight, and you can use it to move things around the map. You can't use it to move yourself though, that's kind of the only real restriction on it. But if this was an ally surrounded by enemies, you can cast it right here and it would push everything out one space away from it, hopefully at least helping that ally get away. Another thing you can do is you can use them to move enemies. You know how you want that plus pattern when you're trying to use your sort of IOP, or perhaps you're trying to line somebody up for your damage buff. You can use Blow to scoot a person one space, get nice and lined up, and you can use it that way as well. It also can do a tiny bit of pushback damage. You'd have to have a lot of pushback damage stacked on your character to really get any good damage out of it. But as you can see, you can do a little bit of pushback damage with it. Massacre is a spell that you would cast on an enemy, and then every time that enemy received damage, it would splash 50% of that damage onto the enemies that are right around it. It can be a really useful spell for creating an AoE attack out of a single enemy. Friction is a spell that you cast on an enemy to scoot them closer to you. But the nice thing is you can then also attack them, and each time they get attacked, they will continue to scoot closer to you. It can be a really neat way to draw somebody close to you if you're trying to lock something, or if you're trying to get them closer to you so that you can wrath them. That could be a way to do that as well. Speaking of locking things, this duel can be a fantastic way to disable somebody from moving for a whole turn. You cast it on an enemy, and it's going to take all of your MP, but it also takes all of their MP. This can be a great way to lock somebody next to you for a wrath, but you got to keep in mind that because it takes yours also, you need to make sure you're in a position where you won't be moved as well. It also makes you and the enemy invulnerable to long-ranged attacks for a solid turn. So if any of your allies tried to attack this, they would have to get next to it to hurt it. So it's very specific to trying to lock something down, to most likely wrath it or do some big damage next turn, keep it from moving, that sort of thing. Power is just a straight up power buff. 300 power you cast right on yourself. It's got a little bit of range to it. You can cast it on an ally. Nice little buff to use. Real good to use right before a wrath also. Precipitation is a 2 AP spell that then gives you 5 AP for that turn. And then the following turn, it's going to steal 3 AP. There are some really handy ways you can use Precipitation that I'm going to show you in the tips and tricks section of this video. One thing to note though, this spell disables Wrath and your weapon for the turn you use it. So don't make the mistake of trying to cast Precipitation so that you can then jump next to an enemy and then Wrath them, because it disables, as you can see right here, it disables your Wrath for a turn. If you're going to use that and Wrath in the same turn, you got to use Wrath first. And then the last spell is this Vitality, which is basically just a big health buff for you, or you can cast it on an ally. Remember I said that IOPs don't really have a way to heal themselves, but they do have ways to delay the possibility of death. It's a spell that stacks on yourself though, so if the spell wears off, you lose the HP. It's not a heal, it's just a buff. Okay, now starting on the alternate versions of some of those spells. This is Determination. This goes in place of the jump spell. This one you can't leap around the map, but for only 2 AP, you make yourself unlockable and unmovable, unthrowable. Nothing's going to be able to drag you around, and you reduce the amount of damage that you're going to take for a turn by 25%. That's pretty good. All right, Conquest, another really handy spell, especially for creating bigger AoE attacks. Basically, it's a summon that you can put out any damage this thing receives, it's going to splash that damage around it, I believe up to 2 spaces. If I come up here and I attack this with a single target, so like this is not being attacked, this is the only thing that should be getting hit, but when I hit it, look at that, it splashed damage over to the enemy next to it. Also, if I was going to use this linear attack and hit both of these, this being hit would also splash out to the cells around it. You can cover a bigger area with that summon out there for you. Violence is a spell that you can use on yourself that then draws enemies 1 space close to you, like this right here. And for every enemy that gets drawn to you in that AoE, you get a 50% pushback damage buff and a 25% lock buff for that 1 turn. So the more enemies you can pull in on that, the better and the bigger the damage. All right, the Gathering spell is very handy. It's got the same pattern as that Sword of Iop where it's a plus section. Any enemies that are lined up away from it, it will draw them in close to that enemy. If you cast that on them, it just sucks them over there, sets them up really nicely for some AoE damage. Flight Back is a very handy spell as well. You can cast this on an enemy and it will push them away. If they're standing right next to you, you can cast that on them and it'll push them away, just like that. But the cool thing is, for the next 2 turns, anytime this enemy makes an attack against my IOP, it will get pushed 2 spaces away again. Grip is the alternate to the duel spell where you lose your 100 MP and they lose their 100 MP and it keeps you invulnerable to range damage. This works very similar, but now you only steal the MP from the enemy, but it makes them completely invulnerable. But you are still free to move around with your own MP. All right, Virtue is the alternate to the power spell, the one that gives you a 300% buff. This one, it will take away 150 power on you and anybody that's around you that you cast it on, but it gives you a nice big shield in place of that. Aggregation is the alternate to the Precipitation spell, the one that gives you 5 AP but then steals 3. This is the alternate version. Basically, you can cast it right on yourself, gives you 2 extra P for that turn, and makes it to where you are unlockable for that turn. Prosecution is the alternate to the Vitality spell. That's the HP buff that you can cast on yourself that'll last for 4 turns. You can use this one for 3 AP, and you can stack a heavy erosion penalty onto an enemy. So if you got something that continues to heal itself back up, put that on it and then bombard it with a bunch of attacks, and you'll start chipping away a lot at that base health. Okay, now I'm going to go over some tips and tricks for using your IOP, some combinations of spells. This won't cover everything, and if somebody thinks of something that I leave off that you think is a fantastic combination, please leave it in the comments below so other people can pick up on those tactics as well. But I'm going to give you a handful here to work with. Okay, my first tip for you is the Wrath is a big star. That's a big spell that you're going to be using on your Strength IOP. That's where it can shine. So if you, like here, start a long ways from your enemies and you're probably not going to be engaging them much on this first turn, go ahead and start your Wrath. It's a 7 AP spell and it hits harder when it's charged up anyways. So go ahead and get the timer going. Another thing to think about with your Wrath is it's a 7 AP spell. Well, even though I have 11, I don't have enough AP to use both my jump and my Wrath in the same turn, which would be a 12 AP. So unless you have 12 AP buff, try to plan your Wrath turn out the turn before. If you're running with other teammates, you can have them either give you an MP buff the turn before so that you can chase down the enemy that you want to hit, or if you have an any or somebody that can give you AP, you can also have them cast that on you to try to get you up over that 12 mark, so then you can use the jump Wrath combination. Don't forget, Precipitation actually disables Wrath, so don't try to use it in order to get yourself to jump close enough to an enemy to Wrath them, because then you realize it's been disabled and you will regret that move very quickly. All right, if you're trying to blitz an enemy, you can use your Wrath, and if it doesn't quite finish them off, go ahead and use Precipitation at that point to then manage to knock out another handful of attacks with these 2 and 3 AP spells. You'll be surprised at how big the enemy is that you can finish off if you follow up with that little combination. The Precipitation and jump combination can also be a great way to land a bunch of hits. So try to take up do as much damage as you can. Get down to your last 2 AP. You can cast this on yourself and still jump and get a lot of distance between you and that enemy you just got done wailing on. Both intimidation and blow can be fantastic ways to get people to line up for those AoE attacks, or if they're just outside your range, you can use them to scoot them just a little bit closer so that you can use those spell attacks. Like I said, there are a whole bunch of combinations. Hopefully those are a handful of just tips and tricks to kind of get you thinking about things. And again, if you've got an idea that I did not cover, please leave it in the comments below and help share that with everybody else. All right, in this portion of the video, I'm going to show you some recommendations on some sets to look for as you level your IOP up. Now, these are just suggestions. These are not the only combinations. These aren't the only sets that you can get. You can mix and match however you want to. If you go through the process of trying to create a custom build setup, or you mix and match different sets, you might come up with a combination that's better than what I recommend at these different levels. These are strictly suggestions for people who are just looking for an easy thing to shoot for, and you're not really wanting to do a lot of diving into the different pieces individually, maybe until you get to a certain level. Also, don't buy the next set that I suggest just because I suggest it. Maybe what you have is better for your play style. Maybe the gear you got is overmaged in certain ways. Maybe the pieces that you have that aren't part of this set make your combination better than what I'm going to suggest. These are just suggestions, just ideas to work off of, or maybe even just a foundation to build off of at certain levels if you are looking to customize. And finally, I did try to stick with gear that are fairly easy or common to come by, so hopefully the prices will be a little more reasonable for you as well. Now I'm going to go through gear setups all the way from the beginning up to those end game levels, give you some ideas to work with. Let's do this. All right, the very first recommendation I'm going to have for almost any strength character in the game is going to be the yellow Peewee set. It gives you a nice set of extra strength damage. However, for an IOP, both range and the summon doesn't really do you much good. So if you do 5 pieces instead of 6, you're going to lose that range. But if you replace this belt, which only gives vitality and summon attribute, you can replace that with something that's probably a little better and going to give you more strength than if you try to stick with just this set. At level 20, my best recommendation for strength-based characters for sure is going to be the Gobble set. It's a full 7 AP set, and it gives you everything you need to get going. And the cool thing is it comes with an AP as well. It's got good vitality, it's got some wisdom built in there. Fantastic set for level 20. And at level 32, follow that bad boy up with the Royal Gobble set. You don't have to go that much further, still comes with an AP buff, and it's got more vitality and damage attributes in it than if you were just on the regular Gobble set. Okay, at level 40s, I got 3 different recommendations for you, kind of based upon where you're starting to go with your build now. If you're looking for more of a tanky kind of build, this Ancient Chafer set is a good setup for you. It comes with some lock, it's got an MP on there, and it's only 4 pieces, so you could then customize some other pieces inside there to give you a good setup. If you're looking for a solid damage build setup, the Earthquake set is fantastic. And the cool thing is the reason it's an 8-piece set is because it actually comes with a pet. So even if you don't get the pet, say you got a different pet that you prefer to use, you can get rid of that and you still get the MP and the AP buff from this. Again, the range doesn't do you a lot of good, but that MP and AP is going to be fantastic. And then my last recommendation for these level 40s, if you're looking for something that's really cheap and extremely customizable, the green Scarleaf set is good. You can kind of go through here and pick which one's going to work best for you. If you're going customizable, most likely you just want a 2-piece set, and then you want to mix and match some different things from there. The big advantage to the green Scarleaf is it's typically super cheap because people are crafting these things all the time. So this is a good one to look at if you're really hard up on commas and you're looking for a cheap option. All right, at level 64, the Beowulf set is a fantastic option for you strength-based characters. However, it does not have an AP buff. The boots do have an MP, but the amulet does not have an AP, and there's none that come with the set. So what I would do is get 6 pieces, don't get the amulet, and instead get the wheelie amulet at level 58. This not only gives you a little bit of strength, but it'll make up for that AP you lose by dropping off some of those other sets. All right, level 80s. Again, I got 2 recommendations, kind of based upon what you're shooting for here. If you're looking for a set that's got some good attributes and is fairly customizable, this Royal Pippin set can be extremely useful. The amulet comes with an AP, the boots have an MP. The range isn't really going to do you a whole lot of good, but they have some nice features here, and they're pretty cheap and easy to get a hold of. However, if you want more of a tanky, maybe damage build, and you want a good solid set altogether, this Terra set is fantastic. The pieces tend to cost a little bit more depending on how many's in the market, but everything comes with damage and vitality, and even the weapon itself is an earth-based damaged axe. It's a fantastic set for the level 80 range. All right, for those low 100s, you've just crossed over and you've got the extra AP now from being 100. I got 4 different recommendations for you, maybe depending on what it is that you're shooting for. At level 100, a fantastic starter set, if you will, is the Bork Chief set. Now, some of these pieces can get kind of pricey if the market starts to drop low on them. If there's a bunch in the market, though, the prices tank. But it's a solid strength set. It's got some agility in there as well, and this thing comes with a lot of vitality wrapped up into it also. If you're looking for something a little more customizable and you can hang on a little bit longer, this Muwoldlim set is fantastic. The pieces here carry a lot. There's some good damage buffs, some good strength and vitality, and the nice thing about this is they are very commonly overmaged with vitality. So if you're only going to grab 2 pieces as a custom set build, these are a really good one to look for. All right, if you're looking for a set maybe for doing a lot of locking, you're trying to keep the enemies by you and not get away, the White Rat set is fantastic. It's actually kind of a strength agility build, and the weapon itself is actually primarily agility, so it's something to be mindful of. But if you're looking for something that just locks them next to you and is going to help you keep them from getting away, that could be a good shot for you. Okay, and the last one I got here, I'm calling kind of a leveling set. It's a level 114 to get everything on. So you're going to have to wait a little bit past 100 to put it on. But each piece comes with not only strength, but a lot of wisdom. So if you're looking for something where you're going to be able to do some pretty good damage and also have a good stack of wisdom because you're trying to level, this is a really good one for you. And the prices on these are not too bad typically. Again, it kind of depends on how many's in the market, but because they're bought so often, you'll see spikes and dips in these. So if you find them at a good deal, snatch it up. It's a great set for you. All right, at those 130s, I got 2 options for you, but both of these sets are pretty pricey. If it was me, there's a really good set at 143, which I'll be going over next, and I would probably hang on and try to get to one of those. But if you're getting antsy, want some new stuff, here's a couple good choices for you. The first one being this Castic set. It's a really easy one to customize. Very pricey, but these are really good pieces for strength characters. And if you wanted to grab just 2, so then you could customize the rest of your loadout, this is a really good one. If you're looking for something that's a little more tanky, something that's going to have a few more pieces to it, the light set here is really good. Again, these get really expensive because of the resources needed to make these, but it's a really good set if you're looking for some strength, looking for some damage and vitality, and something that's going to give you some resistances to help hold things next to you and be able to take some hits. One of my favorite sets for a strength build IOP is this Moowolf set. It's fantastic. It packs a punch. Lots of strength, lots of vitality. In fact, sometimes it's even going to be hard to move away from this when you get up to higher levels because of the kind of damage that you can do with it. The pieces are usually not too bad because, again, it's a high demand item, so people are making it frequently. But if you're looking for a solid set that's going to carry you a good long ways, this is definitely one of my highest recommendations for you. At level 156, if you're itching for something better for a custom build, there's this fantastic 2-piece set called the Black Hornet. Now, both of these are going to steal range, but again, as a strength IOP, that doesn't matter. But they've got great strength, great vitality, and even has some good wisdom and agility in there for helping you maybe with some more locking abilities. It's going to be expensive, but if you got the money and you're looking for something new that's custom, I would go this route. At 167, the Obsidian set is actually pretty nice. It's kind of geared towards a strength intelligent hybrid, so if by any chance you are going hybrid at this point, this would be a wonderful set for you. But even just as strength, it's pretty good. The range isn't going to do you a whole lot of good, but the vitality that you start getting at some of these higher leveled sets are really good. So if you find yourself struggling maybe with that Moowolf set, not having enough HP, and you come across some of these and they've been overmaged, this could be a good set for you to maybe switch into if you are hurting in that area. Okay, at 185, you got the Berserker or Borker set that could be an option. It's got some really good stats. It kind of leans towards a strength agility setup again. If you're trying to diversify into 2 elements, this could be good, but it's got some pretty good stats as well for strength. And the weapon itself even has some good neutral damage. However, as you can see there, it does require stats in those other elements to be able to wield this weapon. So unless you're scrolled, you might not want to go this route simply because the weapon is going to be a bit of a hurdle. Okay, all the way at 195, this is my last set of recommendations. Beyond this point, you're kind of on your own. Things get really expensive, and you're going to probably know by now for sure what it is that you really want when you're looking at those level 199 and 200 sets. But at 195, I figure I can throw a couple more recommendations out for you, especially if, like me, you were still hanging onto that Moobulf set when you get to this point. So this Oogivol set is really good setup if you're going to go with 2 pieces. I don't know if I would do the entire set, but if you're looking for a custom build where you're going to snag 2 of these pieces and mix it with a whole bunch of other stuff, this thing could be pretty handy for you, as it's got a lot of strength in each of the pieces, comes with agility, even some chance in there. If you're thinking about going Omni or a 3-element build, this could maybe help you with that. Not a good recommendation, I feel like, for an eye out, but it's there if you want to. But grab a couple of these pieces and customize with it. It could give you a good setup for a good foundation. And the last set that I'm going to throw out here at you, as again, it's kind of for a tanky build because it's geared towards strength and agility. And it's a really good one for trying to lock things next to you. It comes with some lock, comes with some good resistances, and it's been around long enough that the prices are really not too bad given the level of this set, and it's the Fuji set. So if you're getting up here to 195, looking for something kind of reasonable, something fun to add to your character, Fuji set is a really good option for you. All right, well, that's everything I got. I know that was a lot, and I threw a bunch of stuff at you. If I missed anything or you got questions over anything that I did or didn't cover, feel free to leave it in the comments below, and I will get back with you as quickly as I can for that. If you could do me one super fast favor and just smack that like button, it really helps the channel out, helps YouTube promote my videos and let people know that I'm here. Also, if you don't want to miss out on any of my future class guides, comic guides, or even just fun questing videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you know exactly when my videos go live. That's everything I got for you this time. You all be safe out there, and I'll see you on the next one.